For the next couple of minutes, we're going to be talking about profit or loss from business activities, or commonly known as the Schedule C. Now, just to define a Schedule C, it is an individual or a person conducting business as an independent contractor or as a sole proprietor. This is where they report their income, their expenses of the business activity on the form Schedule C. Now, the Schedule C income or profit or loss is reported on the 1040 on line 12. So we won't go into too great a detail, but if you're self-employed or you're 1099 and you're running a business, how do you report that information? You're going to report that on a Schedule C, which is located on line 12 of our 1040. Now, to navigate to that form, we're going to either click on business income or loss right here in the software, and I'm going to demonstrate how to fill it out. Or we can go over here to our forms finder and we can type in Schedule C. Oops, helps to spell it correctly. And just double click on the Schedule C. The other section to access the Schedule C is under your income menu. As you can see, the Schedule C or line 12, business income or loss, falls within line 7 and line 21 of the 1040. So it's under your income section. So if we go over here to income, we're going to also have our business income and loss, or Schedule C. Labels it right there. I like to access this from line 12 of the 1040. So if I just double click right here on line 12, it's going to pull up my Schedule C or CEZ. From here, I'm going to click New. I'm going to pick the form type depending on the complexity, how much documentation, the expenses determines your C or your CEZ. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. Just click OK. And then I'm filing for a joint tax return here. You can see that this return is for Hannah and Jeremy, Montana. So is it for the taxpayer or the spouse, or is it a qualified joint venture? We're going to say that this is just the primary taxpayer's business. And the next step it takes us to is principal business activity or code. This is where the IRS asks that us preparers put in a business code to track and categorize the types of business, how many of these businesses there are. So if you're putting in a business code, which is a 6-digit code that is closely, they match up somewhat to the actual business activities. Again, they can't capture everything, so some of them are, general categories of financial services or whatever the case may be. You can either put in the business code or you can type in your own description. So if you're a landscaper or you're dealing with a landscaper, you can just type in that description and that'll satisfy the IRS requirement of either entering in a business code or a description. You can do both if you want, but just putting in that description satisfies the requirement. So from here, I'm going to click OK. And it's going to take me into my Schedule C data entry sheet. This is where you're going to capture information if it's different than the taxpayer's resident information. So if they have their employer ID number and they have a business name and they also have a physical business address, you can go ahead and put that information in. Where were you doing this work at? Go ahead and put in that address. Now, if you didn't have an EIN and you were working out of your home, you could leave this information blank and just click OK and jump to the next section. So instead of having an employer identification number, the program is going to assume the social security number of the taxpayer that this is for. So it's instead of the EIN, it's just going to assume that social security number. So from here, I'm just going to click OK, assuming that it's the same. We're using the social and we're operating out of our home. We're just going to click OK. This is a summary page, making sure that we've got everything in here correct. Click Exit. The next section is the questions menu. And to be honest, these are filled out correctly 99 times out of 100. And what it's asking is, what was the accounting method of the business? Was it cash? Was it accrual or other? And 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a cash business. What was the method used for valuing closing inventory? If you're dealing with a business that has inventory at the beginning of the year, you're going to go ahead and use the cost method. You would use dollars rather than using lower of the 99. Again, you're not going to be dealing with this very much, so they're answered correctly. Is all your investment in this business at risk? Of course it is. If it fails, I lose. And then the other question that's common is, did you materially participate? And just go ahead and click Exit. So you really don't have to touch too much there. What you're wanting to get to is reporting our income, reporting our expenses, and if you absolutely have to, you can use the business use of home. I'm not going to comment on that too much, other than that business use of home is a pretty strong audit indicator. They look at that pretty closely. So I'm going to go to income, and under gross receipts or sales, I can either just enter in a gross receipts or sales number. This would be all your 1099s, all of your cash receipts, all of that information, or you can hit F10 and you can create a list. Just put in your description amount. For the month of March, we made $3,500, and new for the month of April, we made another $3,500. Go ahead and click OK. From here, it totals it up. We click Exit. It adds that in, and this would be our baseline income for our gross income, for the Schedule C. So we're going to exit for our little business. The next step would be putting in our expenses. I'm going to click into expenses, and this is your list of expenses. If you wanted to put in advertising expenses, you can just click right on there, put in the $250 you spent in print ad or whatever you did. Under car and truck, this is a very, very common expense. Using miles driven that you drove for the business, you're going to want to claim those miles. So what you're going to do under car and truck is you're going to put car and truck standard mileage rate. Click on that, click OK, and then we're going to input the vehicle. So we've got a new vehicle. Just go ahead and click new. Put in the date that the vehicle was placed in service for the business. So we're just going to say that right at the beginning of the year, we put that vehicle in service for the business. We used it the entire year. How many miles did you drive? What were your commuting miles? And what were your other personal miles? We didn't drive. We really used this for business. So I'm just going to click OK. It's going to ask you, was your vehicle available for use during off-duty hours? Do you have another vehicle available for personal use? Do you have written evidence? And if yes, is the evidence written? Do you have evidence to support it, and is it written? And then it gives you your calculation right here, your mileage deduction, or mileage expense, From here, I'm going to click Exit, Exit, and it carries it right over. Everything else in here, you're just going to pretty much just paste in or just pop in the dollar amounts, other than when you get over to other expenses. Now, other expenses, you can type in whatever it is that you want under other expenses. If it's not captured on this sheet, you can pop it right into other expenses. So that makes it's kind of your catch-all section in other expenses. One of the other common items on a Schedule C is depreciation. We're not going to touch on that right now. We're going to be doing a a follow-up video for depreciation, but you can also do depreciation for a business asset in the Schedule C. And then you'll just read on down the page. Did you rent any machinery for your business? Did you have any repairs for the business? Your utilities, what all did you have? And down here, it's going to give you either your profit, tentative profit or loss. I'm going to exit here. And if you had business use of home, which this is kind of complex as far as how to calculate everything, and make sure that you're in compliance with all the rules. But you have business use of home, and again, there's Form 8829. So if you want to look it up on irs.gov, it'll give you a better explanation of the rules and how to stay in compliance for business use of home. I'm going to click exit here, exit on out of the page, and just show you that it carries over. Oops. They're also part of our due diligence is capturing documentation that validates the existence of a business. So what did they bring in to tell you and to substantiate that they actually had an actual business? So under here, you're going to want to make copies of these items if you're checking them, that they brought in their business license and their bank statements. But did you rely, this is a warning, on any documents but made notes in the file, or did you rely on any documents and marked, then no other documents used may be marked? So if you want to make any notes here, the F8 key, whenever you're in something like this, F8 for notes. So we could go in here and click F8, check the file for copies, cops of docs. Click OK. Click OK. And now it says that you've attached the notes, you've answered those questions. Then you exit back, and you're going to see on line 12 of the 1040, we have a business loss of $188. And that's really all we wanted to show you today as far as the Schedule C. Again, you can access that under the income menu. You can type in Schedule C under the form finder or under business income or loss on line 12 of the 1040. Thank you very much. Hope you learned a lot.